And now I'm very excited. Welcome back to the Odds Breakers, the deputy editor of sports betting at ESPN, Mr. David Bearman. You can follow him on Twitter at DBearmanESPN. David, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I'd ask you what's happening at ESPN, but looking at this crazy NFL week, I'm going to think it's a lot.
Yeah, this is going to be a week to remember. It's been kind of crazy. You always deal with one or two newsy type stories a week that will have a betting impact, which is where I come in. SportsCenter is going to report something, NFL Live is going to report something. They're going to want to know the betting impact, but not every story has a betting impact. In fact, a lot of them don't really move the needle at all if a guy is injured or day to day. Like Calvin Ridley taking off for mental health reasons didn't move it that much. Some other players being out for COVID or injuries don't move it that much, but when two guys in the top 8 of the MVP race are not going to play this weekend, that moves the needle. Talking about Derrick Henry, obviously, and Aaron Rodgers, and unfortunately, there's obviously the Henry Ruggs news that's out there that's no betting impact at all. But big news stories that keep you busy during the week when really you're just thinking about picks and columns and what you're going to do, and now you're like, well, Tennessee just moved 3 points, and Green Bay just moved 8 points, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a busy day, busy week.
Crazy, just crazy week. I'm so, even though it has nothing to do with the line, I'm very sad about the rug situation. Such a tragedy for the victims and even his life. Making a decision he might not have, if not impaired. Yep. Horrible news. And this thing happens all the time. These types of things, and you just gotta hope that there's ways that he can come out of it eventually and save his own life, and maybe hopefully be a speaker or somebody to prevent certain things like this happening again. That's the worst news for sure for me this whole week.
It's awful to hear. Obviously, your heart goes out to the families of the deceased, and and Henry Ruggs' family as well. I mean, his life has changed overnight, and obviously he made a very poor decision. And there's things out there that the league has set up to prevent that, and the team, and you have the Uber assistance program and stuff, and it's something that is just very sad to see. A talented young athlete throwing his life away like that and ruining and ending other lives. It's not something that you want to wake up and read about. And, it's been a tough week overall for a lot of things in the National Football League. And that's obviously the worst one of them all.
Yeah, for sure. The Henry news, huge, massive fantasy impact, the way he was going. And that actually slightly did move the line past the 7 here, a little bit, even up to an 8. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But the Aaron Rodgers news was the biggest, I think, with the COVID. He said he was immunized. And to be honest with you, David, I remember when he said that. And I was like, and I thought to myself, what does that mean? And then I kind of forgot about it, but I kind of thought to myself, is he trying to dance around the fact he's been vaccinated? But then the media didn't really pursue it, and I didn't pursue it because it just wasn't a subject for me. And then all of a sudden you find out he wasn't when everyone assumed he was. It's almost like he kind of trick some people here.
And we really don't know what that means as of yet. By the time this drops, we may know. I know all the news agencies are chasing the story. At the end of the day, quite simply, he tested positive for COVID. He can't play this week, and he can't return until next Saturday per the NFL's unvaccinated guidelines. And that's what the NFL is declaring him. Whether he got immunized or not, at the end of the day, the NFL has determined that he is not vaccinated, which both Rodgers and I assume the Packers were aware of. And COVID is still around. If people think it's gone, they're kidding themselves. Like, the Giants have had issues this week. The Bills have issues. This is the second consecutive week that it hit Green Bay. Last week it was their 3 receivers, and now it's their quarterback. That's the world we live in right now. You and I have done podcasts for a while, and I would have advised people 2 years ago that the best philosophy I can give you when betting on the NFL is hop on it early and get the best possible line you can get, because if you're waiting till Sunday, you've already lost. You almost have to sort of change that a little bit with COVID, because I listened to my own advice and I jumped right on the Packers at even money when I saw to pick them versus Kansas City, and I thought it was a steal. I even wrote up an entire column for it saying that this is the steal of the week. And now it's +8 without Aaron Rodgers. And these are things you can't predict. People can get injured in practice. People can be sick, out. You have no idea. But the old adage of jump on that early line, now I'm sitting there holding a Packers money line ticket or Packers at Pick'em that that doesn't look as attractive as it once did with Jordan Love in there, not Aaron Rodgers. That being said, I know we'll probably go on to every game. I'm still taking the Packers. I like the Packers +8. I like them at even money. I think 8's a drastic change. Probably one of the only players in the league that can move a line 7 or 8 points. I just think that the Packers overall are a better team than the Chiefs, as we've seen, and many reasons that we can get into why I don't like the Chiefs. So if you're going to give me 8 points against the Chiefs, I'm going to take it.
There you go. Now just triple your bet size and you'll be fine.
If the Packers win, I win that bet. So
here's the thing. 8 points is a lot different if it's going from 7.5 to 15.5 than it is going from 0 to 8. It's a massively larger percentage change. So that's kind of what drives me nuts about he's worth this many points. It's like, well, that just depends upon where the points are going, right? Because the percentage of winning is a lot bigger of a change 0 to 8 than it is 8 from 16. So people should remember that. And I do agree with what you said, and we'll get into that when we get to this game. But as far as the only other news was really Odell Beckham, which shouldn't affect the line at all. That was just some weird stuff and something that didn't surprise me with Odell. He seems to kind of be a little bit diva-ish throughout his career himself. But man, before we get into some of these NFL games, I want to ask you your opinion on something. Who do you think right now is the best quarterback in the league? Now, I would have said Patrick Mahomes before the season started, but right now it might be a little different.
Yeah, I would agree that before the season you have to put Mahomes up there, but something is off this year with him in the offense, as you can tell. I'm still going to go with Aaron Rodgers. There's a reason why I picked the Packers to win the Super Bowl before the season started, or go to the Super Bowl and play the Bills. That was my preseason prediction. I believe I said it on this podcast, and after week 1, it was looking pretty bad, but since then it's looked pretty good. And just look at what Rodgers did last week. Is there any other quarterback in the NFL that you can really, really be confident would go out and beat an undefeated team with missing his top 3 receivers, and then his tight end goes down early? I don't know if any other, and that's how I value who's the best quarterback. Sure, systems matter, teams matter, opponents matter, but just think about how Aaron Rodgers went into Arizona in a primetime game against an undefeated and top 5 defense without his 3 top receivers and half the game without his top tight end, and still won the game. To me, that makes him the best quarterback in the league. To me, that makes him the MVP. And I know people probably aren't going to vote for him for MVP for many reasons. One, he won it last year, his offseason debacle, and now the COVID stuff. I still think you ask me who the best quarterback in football is, and until he proves otherwise, it's Aaron Rodgers.
So I guess, yeah, if AJ Green turns around, maybe that's different from what happened a week ago. That interception killed him.
But the possession before the Packers went 4 downs from the 1 yard line to get in. Yeah. So
the Arizona blew that game too. But I will say that my pick on who's the best right now is not the one I would choose in the playoffs. So just from a statistics standpoint, EPA per play, Matt Stafford is the best quarterback right now. But what you say paired with great coaches is important too. I think that Matt LaFleur was a fantastic coach, and you pair him with Aaron Rodgers, they could win a Super Bowl. That's 100% for sure. And he played Arizona perfectly that game and put them on their heels. And I do have the Packers quite high in my power ratings. Right now, Stafford's looking the best at EPA per play as well as completion percentage over expectation. So just looking what the Rams are doing, but he's also paired up with a great coach too, isn't he? Right?
He is, and he has weapons all over the board. They're both offensive-minded coaches. And to throw a stat out there, I looked it up as I was writing my Packers pick up last night. If you take week 1 out of the equation, when Green Bay decided the season didn't start until a week later, over the last 7 weeks, Stafford and Rodgers are 1-2 in total QBR, and it's not even close. It's just the 2 of them above the rest of the field. So taking the first week out, which I'm sure Stafford was fine week 1, Rodgers was not. Just saying weeks 2 through 8, those are the top 2 quarterbacks in the league. So
I made a hand. In some of my Packers wins, I threw away the week 1 stats, showing that the metrics were putting the number wrong. So I agree with you there. I will say that I'll take Tom Brady over anybody in the playoffs, but I would take Aaron Rodgers over Stafford in the playoffs and I would take Rodgers and Stafford over Brady right now. It's just very strange how that all kind of comes together, but it's a funny question because you can answer it different ways, can't you?
And yet the top two in the MVP we haven't even mentioned, and that's Allen and Murray. So, I mean, there's your list of MVP candidates, and you have, Rodgers, Stafford, Brady, Murray, and Allen. I mean, there you go. That's your MVP race. So
right. You and I can trust Rodgers and Brady more than we can trust Murray and Allen for sure in the playoffs. So that's why we made that decision. No, that's great stuff, man. Well, let's move on to some NFL games then. Starting out with the Thursday night game, you have the New York Jets versus the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I'm not sure if White did enough to make a quarterback controversy there yet, but man, he sure has an opportunity now, doesn't he, David?
He does. He's going to have the limelight to himself on Thursday Night Football, which is, the guy coming off a career game in his first game to then have the limelight. And it's not like he's going up against the 85 Bears here. It is an Indianapolis Colts team, which is good, not great. You saw how the Colts blew the game against the Titans. If you're laying 10.5 with Carson Wentz and the Colts, you're probably in the wrong business. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm not a big fan of taking the Jets in any stretch of the imagination, but the Jets have been a little bit decent the last couple of weeks, as you saw them go ahead and beat the Bengals. Obviously, they didn't show up against the Patriots, but the week before, and then they beat the Titans. So they're starting to get things right. I still think they're a bad football team, but in no stretch of the imagination do I think the Colts are a 10.5-point favorite over anybody. I know they went ahead and blew out Houston a few weeks ago after getting off the mat with the Monday night disaster, or the Monday night loss to the Ravens. And then last week, they pretty much owned the Titans for the first three quarters. I just don't think that they're that good to be a 10.5-point favorite. I'm probably not going to play the game. I'll look into props and such. But you should know that Thursday night home favorites are 1-4 ATS, and most of them have not been that close. When you think about how the Bucs should have lost to the Cowboys, and you saw what the Cardinals did to the Packers. So I don't trust laying 10.5 here. So if I had to choose, I would play the Jets. I think this is closer to a 7.5 or 8-point spread, but I'm probably not going to pick a side in this one.
Well, fair enough. I do have to come up with a prop because I've been doing Thursday and Monday night props. That's been going really well, but I don't have a side either. I have it close to the spread, just factoring in the letdown spot for the Jets. I do think that this was such a big win for them that they could let down. And now Indianapolis has some tape on White here. Maybe they could do something there. I'll tell you this, the Jets won that game with their running backs. They ran the ball well and they threw to their running backs, and that really took the Bengals off guard. And I wonder if Cleveland's going to try to employ that same philosophy when they play each other this week. But I mean, right now the Colts are 14th in EPA per play. The Jets are 30th. My number's really close to the spread just on a pure numbers basis, but I can't bet it. So I think we have agreement that we're laying off this one.
It's just one of those games where, like, I'm not going to be totally stunned if it's 27-10 Colts, but I'm also not going to be stunned if this is 14-13 in the fourth quarter. So
yeah, totally agree there. Let's move on to the next game then. Maybe we have something a little stronger. The Houston Texans versus the Miami Dolphins. And David, wasn't this the year Miami was going to play the Bears in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
our teams, man, looking pretty bad so far.
I was having this conversation with my brother and a couple of relatives the other day. We're all huge Dolphin fans, born and raised there. They still go to the game since they're down there. It's been 20 years since Marino. A lot of mediocrity, a lot of failures, a lot of rebuilds. I'm not sure I remember another season that has been this piss poor when it comes to the expectation of, they did go 1-15 one year, losing the first 13 games of the season, but that was a bad team with a coach that no one ever heard of in Cam Cameron, and there weren't high expectations. This was a 10-win team that was supposed to go to the playoffs with added weapons and multiple draft picks and a defense that was top 5 last year, and absolutely nothing has gone right, top to bottom, since they beat the Patriots. And stunningly, if you think about it, like, Damian Harris doesn't fumble at the 5-yard line with 3 minutes to go, and the Dolphins are 0-8.
Yeah, I know, right? That was a complete so true.
These are two bad football teams that the NFL had something up their sleeve when they made these two teams face off 3 days after the trade deadline in which Watson was supposed to go to Miami. I'm glad it didn't happen. I wanted nothing to do with that situation, for better or for worse. I'm still a fan of Tua. I still think Tua is going to be fine. Do I think he's the next Dan Marino like I did before? No. But I also think he's only had 13 games under his belt, and he still has no weapons out there since the ones they got can't stay healthy. The offensive line is a debacle. There's nothing to like about the Houston Texans at all, but the Miami Dolphins should not be laying a touchdown against my son's flag football team. So I'm going to be taking the Texans plus the touchdown, 6.5, 7, wherever you can get it. It's just a bad. The Dolphins are averaging 17 points per game. What makes you think they can win by 7? Nothing. Nothing at all. They play dink and dunk. I've watched every single play of every single game, and literally, I coach 7-year-old flag football, and I draw up plays better than what I'm watching on television. So, is what it is. The Dolphins averaging 17 points per game, and most of it is running the no huddle the last quarter when they're down 2 touchdowns against the Raiders or against the Bills or against someone else. I'm out, taking the touchdown and going.
Well, and this kind of goes back to when we talked before the season, I mentioned, why did you guys promote those offensive coordinators under the guy you fired?
I have no answer then and no answer now.
Because we were talking about the Chargers with their, new system, and I thought they built it better, getting a guy from the Sean Payton with Lombardi. But man, the Dolphins are worse than I even expected too, because I leaned the under, but I never took them. I don't know if Tua is not good, because he's just like with Mitch Trubisky now. Mitch Trubisky looked fantastic in the preseason, with a real coach. Now looking at Justin Fields getting beat with his terrible coaching, we don't know if Justin Fields is bad or not. We're both in the same boat here, man.
Yeah, and you just look at this, and everyone that was in the Deshaun Watson trade camp that I've tried to push aside. Listen, Tua hasn't blown the doors off. I'm not going to hide from that. But it's just, you just hope that he's not a victim of this bad coaching staff, bad general manager who has built an awful team around him. You don't draft 4 offensive linemen in the first 2 rounds of the last 2 drafts and have none of them work out. Drafted a really, really good wide receiver who's supposedly the fastest guy in the league, and he averages 2 yards per attempt. Like, he had 29 yards on 12 targets last week. Like, they're
predictable.
Like, it's unfathomable. The best running back they have is a 7th-round pick and a couple of undrafted free agents. And I made this prediction before the season started that my biggest concern wasn't going to be the offense. It was going to be a regression of the defense. The Dolphins were a 10-win team last year, despite their offensive struggles, because their defense led the league in everything. They had the most turnovers, the most takeaways, best 3rd down percentage. They did exactly what you needed a defense to do. Get off the field on 3rd down, get the key turnover time and time again. It was not sustainable. You're not going to be able to do that season after season. So when you look at win totals, the Dolphins were not a 10-win team last year. However, they're better than a 1-7 team, and the defense has regressed far worse than I ever possibly imagined. They have some of the same players out there, and I don't know what's going on with the scheme, but Howard doesn't look the same. Jones doesn't look the same. They're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. Josh Allen he could have waited till Christmas to throw the ball last week. And then you couple that with injuries, offensive struggles, predictability, and just general crappiness, and you get a 1-7 team that I'm not laying a touchdown with.
All right. So yeah, great breakdown of the Dolphins. Probably spent a little too much time on that, but I mean, you got all fired up. I love it, David. I get fired up about the Bears too. And this game is Tyrod Taylor playing. I see that he's eligible to come off IR. So that's where I wouldn't want to bet that. I actually think the Dolphins have a chance to get off like as a slump buster type game. Sure. So maybe the players do that. So I'm just waiting on more news. I'm not sure if Davis Mills is going to start or not. If he does, then maybe I would be a player on the Dolphins. But dude, it's an ugly pick if you want to hold your nose and do something like that. The Texans are just far worse than I imagined, and Jacksonville is making an argument themselves with how bad they've been playing, is all I have to say. But let's move on to another game. We talked a lot about that one. Let's go with the Denver versus Dallas here. And I'll start if that's okay, David, because I actually do have a play on this game that I'm going to give out. The spread I see is around 9.5, and I admit that I did get a 10 in this. Total about 49. Denver, big dog here. This is an overreaction, I think, here to Denver trading Von Miller. Everyone's thinking they're giving up on their season, but they're 4-4. And people have to remember that Von Miller, he would he gets paid a lot of money. He's older. He's been injured a ton for how much he's gotten paid from that team. And they get a king's ransom for a guy that old with that kind of contract, getting a second and third round pick. You have to make that move. You can't even trust him to play the rest of the season. I still think that they're motivated here, at 4-4, especially when you look at how bad the Chiefs has been. And then you look at the Chargers' vulnerability, dropping 2 games in a row. I think the Rams personally got ripped off in this trade.
And that's what we've seen that time and time again. The Rams have given up every draft pick that they own for the talent that they have. So they're not winning the trades, but they do have a lot of talent.
For sure. Now, looking at this game itself, I mean, I do like Dallas as a team this year. I think they're top 6 in my power ratings, but at the same time, they also give up 278 passing yards per game. The fact that Jetty is back, Sutton there, I just think that they can start moving the ball a little bit better with Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater is just one of the best dog quarterbacks in this league here. Denver, if you look at their injury report, they get a bunch of guys back from IR in week 9 too. So just looking at this, I think I'm taking the overreaction here. I took the 10 and I laid -115, but I like it all the way down to 7 personally. I think maybe even 6. So I'm taking Denver. What are your thoughts?
I know you didn't bring me on the show to disagree with everything you said, so I'm going to poke a couple of holes in it. I don't totally disagree with you. I'm not playing this game, but I would say Denver is 4-4 with wins over the Giants, the Jaguars, the Jets, and Washington. Those are those 4 wins.
Yeah, those are terrible wins, but at the same time, they had the injury bug, so that's what I'm handicapping.
They did. Those are their 4 wins, and they got blown out by the Ravens. Didn't play well against the Steelers. Didn't play well against the Raiders. And then you saw the Thursday night game against the Browns. They didn't play well either. Now, I do like Teddy. He's a great covering quarterback. To me, this game depends on who's the quarterback for Dallas. If Dak is in, I think this line is appropriate. Dallas is the only team in the league who is covered in every single game, including when they didn't have Dak Prescott. They're not going to end the season 16-0, so there will be a regression there. I just think that this Dallas Cowboys team is better than Vegas is actually showing, and there's been lines every single week that have shown that people don't believe in the Dallas Cowboys just yet. You would think it would be the opposite, that everybody bets on Dallas or a public team, yada, yada, yada. The odds makers have been a little skeptical because Dallas does this a lot where they look like they're good and then they waste their talent. I still think McCarthy's going to blow it in the playoffs because he's not a very smart coach. I just don't think Denver's very good. 4 wins over bad teams, 4 losses versus better teams. Yes, Von Miller, probably they got a king's ransom for him, but he's missing on defense. I don't know if this line is so much of a reaction of that or it's the fact that Dallas can win without Dak Prescott, which they could not do last year. They have answered every question you've asked about the Dallas Cowboys. Going into the season, it was, how bad's the defense going to be? The defense, although you're right about allowing passing yards, the defense has been much better this year than last year. Can they win big games? They've been winning big games, as you've seen last week and weeks before. Can they win without Dak, which they did not do last year, and they have? So I am now a believer of the Dallas Cowboys, and I just don't think Denver's very good. 10 seems a lot. I'm not really in the business of laying 10 in the National Football League, but it is a game that I may parlay with others because I do like Dallas. I just don't love Dallas. And if you get it at 9 or 9.5, even better. I would probably lean towards the under here only because Denver really doesn't have any offense, as you saw last week. Washington has one of the worst defenses in the league, and they still held Denver to 10 points until a late score in the 4th quarter.
Well, I'll tell you this. Now Dallas has, a win with their backup quarterback. Wonder what that does to Dak's mind a little bit, coming in. You just keep proving that it's him. Obviously, people know that he's much better than Cooper Rush, but at the same time, there's going to be a point where they're going to get a little bit more pressure feeling on them. I think that.
I mean, some of that has to do with the fact that, quite honestly, the Vikings stink, and the Vikings are who I thought they were. Everybody else loved the Vikings, and I think they're awful. And that was a little bit of that last week. That's why I was on Dallas last week, even with Cooper back there, I like the Dallas Cowboys.
I had a personal play on Dallas last week. Didn't send it out, but I did have personal play, so I agree with you there. I still like my play, but I just if it was like a 6 or 7 point spread, it would definitely make me scratch my head a lot more. I think Denver's a cover machine. I think the back door could be open just because Dallas gives up so many yards per play. Let's move on to the next game. Speaking of Minnesota, they're just such an interesting team. I mean, Cousins seems to step up in certain situations. You saw them almost beat Arizona. But then, just completely looks different. Like you said, I thought they were out coached last game personally. I don't know why they're so timid with the ball. They should have been whipping the ball downfield a little bit, but they're very predictable last week. I thought Zimmer did a terrible job. Minnesota, what's the spread? 5.5. Let's just look for an update here. I have to open my odds screen.
I mean, just think about, you just said that Zimmer was out coached by Mike McCarthy. That says
it all. It's a sad thing to say.
I mean, it takes a lot to be out coached by Mike McCarthy. And I was down on the Vikings before the season started. I played the under 9. It was one of the picks I played that was probably argued the most on air, just because people like the Vikings because of their talent. But I think their coaches past their prime. It's a subpar team. Cousins can look like a Hall of Famer. He can also look like the absolute opposite of a Hall of Famer. And I just don't think they're using the talent that they have. And they're going up against a very good Baltimore team off a bye, who's probably very angry after what happened in their last game, losing at home to the Bengals and being embarrassed. But they also won while they were on a bye. Cincinnati and Cleveland both lost. They gained half a game in the division. No one's worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. I just think they're a better team, and push comes to shove, I would take the Ravens in this one. I think the end of the Mike Zimmer era could be this week, or it could be in the next couple of weeks. But you go ahead and lose to Dallas at home in prime time with their backup quarterback, and then go get crushed by Baltimore. Not good.
Definitely not good. So it's 6 right now. 49.5 is the total. 4.9 rushing yards per attempt. The Ravens should be able to run all over them. At 4.9. The Vikings allow one of the lower in the league, 4.6 yards per rush. And that was kind of my handicap with Dallas last week. I'm like, Dallas should be able to run against this team, and now they're facing Lamar Jackson, who's extremely good at running the ball, and just the Ravens' history has been a running team. I mean, can Cousins keep up with them is my question. When they're scoring, can they come back? The Ravens actually only ranked 21st on defense in drop back EPA, so they're a little susceptible there. They're bad against tight ends. But the Ravens also can get to the quarterbacks, ranking 7th in pressure rate. My number's we're at the spread, though. I mean, for an NFL game. So I'll lean to the over in this game. I think there's going to be some points personally. I think the Ravens coming off the bye is a nice time to look at some points being scored. So on to the next game then. We have the New England Patriots at the Carolina Panthers. Now, the big question in this game, David, is Sam Darnold going to play? What is the drop-off to P.J. Walker? I've seen some really bad Sam Darnold play, and then I've seen him pretty good when he played at least the Saints. And I guess last week he was okay until he got smashed. But what's your feeling on if he plays or not?
I mean, I think he's going to play as long as he passes all the concussion protocols. Obviously, I don't have any control over that. But, there didn't seem to be a huge drop-off. It's not like we're talking Aaron Rodgers here. To me, this is the toughest game of the week. I'm not playing it at all because, the Patriots have turned out to be surprisingly better than we thought they were. Mac Jones coming into his own. I had been bashing the Patriots offense the first half of the year. They've kind of gotten it going against Dallas late. And then, you saw what they did to the Jets, and then they were able to go toe-to-toe with the Chargers. Panthers are a tough defense, and the Panthers off to a great start and came back to earth, but looked good last week. But Atlanta is everybody's remedy if you're looking to get better. This is a tough game. I lean Carolina if Darnold plays, but I think this will be a close game. And, at the end of the day, you're going to want the better coach, and the better coach is Belichick. I really don't see any angles or edges here. It's probably going to be a close, low-scoring game. These two teams have good defenses. 41's a little bit too low for my blood, but if I had one play on this game, it would be the under.
Oh yeah, and I'll lean to the under with you there too. I have this more of a 3-point spread. not pick them. I mean, it's 4 right now. If Darnold plays, I don't want to play Carolina, and I've lost on Carolina a lot. I finally won on them last week, but at the same time, CMC's coming back probably.
Possibly. Yep.
It's just a home dog over 4, and the Patriots are good, not great. I think Carolina is medium, not super bad. It's just one of those. I have a small edge if I play Carolina, but no play right now until I get more information here, and I'll let our members know when that time comes. Let's move into Buffalo versus Jacksonville here. Man, is this the biggest spread of the weekend? I mean, it's 14 points, 14 and a half, actually. Buffalo laying road chalk. Jacksonville makes me scratch my head so much because they have some good numbers on offense, and they're just so bad at turnovers and third and fourth down efficiency. And that's where they're getting beat, man. And on the other hand, Buffalo, when they play bad teams, they usually cover. The last 6 games now against Miami, thank goodness that Miami fumbled that ball or whatever it was at the end, and Buffalo would have just got a first down and took a knee. They covered that spread because of the field position where that happened. That shouldn't have happened last week. But I mean, I can't bet Urban Meyer, man. What were your thoughts?
I mean, I wouldn't even hesitate if you could get it at 14 or buy it down to 14. I would lay it in a heartbeat, unless the Bills decide to take the first half off again, like they did versus Miami. This could be ugly. Like, you've seen Jacksonville. Jacksonville's played one decent game of football all year, and that was against the aforementioned Miami Dolphins. And they've shown you nothing else whatsoever. I guess they played well for a half against Cincinnati in prime time. Other than that, they are who we think they are. The Bills have the best cover margin in the NFL, and the Jaguars have the second worst cover margin to the Dolphins. So to me, it adds up to a Bills blowout. You saw what they did to Houston a few weeks ago. This has 38-3 written all over it. If you still got the Bills alive in your survivor, go ahead and play them. This is not one of those games you're going to be like, oh crap, do you see Jacksonville beat Buffalo? No, there's a talent gap. There's a coaching gap, with all due respect to Urban. This is one where I don't like laying double digits in the NFL. I don't like laying double digits on the road in the NFL. I wouldn't hesitate on this one.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have it exactly at the spread, 32 to 17 and a half metrically. So it's a stay away from me, but nothing would surprise me if Buffalo decides to kind of lay an egg. That could happen. Is Trevor Lawrence that bad?
I can tell you, I know it's analytics and measurements, but the Jags, you have 7. They're not scoring 17 points, they may not score 17 points in the next 5 games. I don't think it's Trevor that's bad. I think he's a typical rookie playing for a rookie coach in a system that's not tailored towards the NFL. You put Urban Meyer you put Trevor Lawrence with Bill Belichick, and Trevor's playing probably just as good, if not better, than Mac Jones if you swap the two. Mac Jones on Jacksonville under Urban, and he disappears as well. You just flip the two, and a world of difference between the coaches and the systems and what they're surrounded by. So I don't think the issue is Trevor Lawrence. He'll be just fine with the right coach and right system. Unfortunately, it's not what he has. Like, look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was in a terrible coach, terrible system, and he was garbage for 3 years.
Well, it feels like Fields with Nagy too. So I totally understand what you're saying. Let's move on to this game. This is a big division game here. Both these teams coming off smelly losses. The Cleveland Browns are at the Cincinnati Bengals. Now I'm seeing some 2.5s. Sometimes, yeah, 2.5. It was at 3 earlier, and I'll tell you right now, I did grab the 3. Now that's going lower. I don't know if I like it as much anymore because Cleveland still has some injuries. Ward got injured again. Conklin's out. Their safety Johnson's all questionable. But you can't tell me that Cincinnati's higher on the power ratings than Cleveland already. That's what this line was telling you at the 3. And that's why I played it. Odell Beckham being sent home. Coach said he's not on the team right now. Maybe that kind of gets this team to get their heads out of their you-know-whats and actually start playing. At the 3, I like Cleveland. I think if they look at the tape, they can get the ball out to Dearness Johnson from the passing game, keep pounding Chubb, and they should be able to control the time of possession against Cincinnati. So that's where my handicap is. What are your thoughts, David?
I mean, this is a stay away game for me. With Cleveland, there's not much to like about Cleveland right now. You mentioned the Odell Beckham stuff. The offense has been a mess completely. The defense hasn't been great either. I don't really like either side in this one. I do have the Bengals slightly ahead of the Browns right now, and it's kind of even in the power rankings. But that's what the 3 points at home tells you. It's about where it is. It's probably the right line. If it dips to 2.5, I'd be tempted to take the Bengals. But it's not a game I'm going to want to really have any part of, other than potentially needing an extra parlay leg where I'll take the Bengals money line to win at home if I'm looking for one. But no Odell Beckham doesn't really bother me because he hasn't really been of any importance whatsoever. I just think the overall mentality in Cleveland right now is messy. Like, it happens every single year with them, but usually it's we're 2-7, blow up the whole thing. This is a team that started well, had some good vibes, and has completely gone the other way. Even in their win against Denver a few weeks ago, they didn't look good. I'm not seeing what we should expect out of the Cleveland Browns, and I'm not sure Baker Mayfield's the answer there either.
All right, so I don't disagree with you there. I think that we wait and find out a little bit more about these injuries. Well, we have to move on here. The Raiders versus Giants. I'm going to pass. Do you have a pass on that?
I like the Raiders, but not enough to break it down with you.
All right, no, that's fine because we're running short on time. Atlanta versus the Saints here. The Saints are they were laying 5, they're laying 6 now. I think even with the downgrade from Jameis Winston, Trevor Siemian showed pretty well last week. And I think Winston opened it up this year. I think it was mostly Sean Payton. I'm going to give you a strong lean to the Saints.
I do like the Saints. I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be that much change at quarterback. We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. It could be Taysom Hill. It could be Trevor Siemian. My only concern here is my concern every single time I see ATL on anything with it comes to football. They are my kryptonite when it comes to betting, whether I take them or bet against them. The Falcons always screw me one way or another, and I know that if I have the Saints, you can guarantee that the Falcons will be getting blown out, and then we'll have a backdoor touchdown late in the game to just cover the spread and screw it. That's just what they do when it comes to me betting for or against the Falcons.
All right, fair enough. Chargers, Philadelphia. I have it at 25 apiece, but I think it's a highly volatile game. It wouldn't shock me if Philly wins. It wouldn't shock me if the Chargers win by a lot. Thoughts?
My only thing on this is if you took last week out of the equation, this is a 4 or 5 point game. I think 2.5 down to 1.5 is an overreaction to the Eagles looking great versus the crappy Lions and the Chargers struggling versus the Patriots. My only concern is Justin Herbert has not looked great the last 2 or 3 weeks. Metrics wise have been awful the last couple of weeks, but at the end of the day, I have the Chargers as significantly better than the Eagles. So I lean Chargers, but you're right. It could go either way. I just think if you forgot about last week, this is a 4 or 5 point game.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you there. Green Bay, Kansas City, going back to what you said and what I said about LaFleur, I think they can run all over the Chiefs and keep scoring just by running the football. I still think Green Bay could win this game, but with the downgrade, I'll take Kansas City 27-23, which says play on Green Bay.
Yeah, and I said at the top of the show, I already had the Packers, money line when the spread was pick 'em, and I'm going to go play it at 8. Like, if you can, I like them to begin with. I know Rodgers to love is a big drop off, but you're talking about a Chiefs team that has not put 4 solid quarters of football together this entire year. This is not a 1 or 2 week problem. This is systemic. The Chiefs have issues. They have literally turned the ball over 19 times this year in 8 games. Think about that. During their 2 back-to-back AFC championship years, they had 15 and 16 turnovers for the entire year, respectively. They have 19 already. Something's going on there in the water. They're not holding onto the ball. They're making stupid mistakes. And then their defense is just absolutely horrific. So I'm going to take the Packers in the 8. I don't think Jordan Love has to win the game. He's got 2 great running backs and 3 great receivers and an outstanding coach and a decent defense. Let the team do the work. And you're not laying 8 points with the Chiefs. Let's put it that way.
There's no tape on Jordan Love. Arizona, San Fran, there's a Murray injury. Now he's questionable. I have to pass this game because of it.
I actually just got an alert as we were talking that Kingsbury expects Murray to play. I actually jumped on this at 2 on Sunday, -2. It's actually gone down to pick 'em. I'm going to hit it again. I love the Cardinals here. If we had started the show with what's your best play, I would have said the Cardinals. They're just significantly better than San Francisco. This line is because they were unsure about Murray. But I do also like the under here. If you look at the last 3 matchups between these two teams, 3 weeks ago, it was 17-10 Arizona in a nice defensive game. Last year, they totaled 44-32. And if Murray doesn't play, you're looking at a Colt McCord, Jimmy G, hello under. I like the Cardinals. They're better than the 49ers. You can get it at Pick'em right now and take the Cardinals.
All right, so I'm going to lean San Fran if it gets back up to 3, only because San Fran played them so close last time, and the Cardinals are now without J.J. Watt and looks like Zaven Collins, their stud linebacker, is going to miss this game. Tennessee Rams, was it warranted for Derrick Henry's to go from 6.5 to 8?
Probably not that much. And the Rams are the better team to begin with, and I think that the Titans did as well as they could the last couple of weeks. But the Rams is not a team that blows people out. Check out what happened against Houston. They let them right back in terms of covering. I'd cautiously lay 7 if you can get it at 7, or if you took it earlier in the week at 6. But I'd probably stay away from this one other than some props that I'll probably look at.
Yeah, and what the thing about this is I wanted to play the Rams, but now that this move passed for Derrick Henry, I don't like it as much anymore. So I'm going to pass on this one. Last game, Monday Night Football, the Bears at Pittsburgh. What's the spread here? 6.5. Actually, yep, 6.5 now. It's a little bit juiced to the Bears, but I hope it goes down because I'll play Pittsburgh.
The only thing I'm going to be playing on this one, other than hoping that all of my stuff and my fantasies and survivors are all wrapped up so I can go watch something else, is the under. I don't think either one of these teams has enough offense to get it to 40. I don't like betting under 40, but I mean, you saw the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game. You've seen other Pittsburgh games. I mean, this has 13-7 snooze fest written all over it, so I'll play the under if I play anything.
All right, there you go. The under. I am concerned about the Bears defense without Mack and now without Eddie Jackson. So that's why I think the Pittsburgh can actually have an offense this game for once. So I will give a strong lean to Pittsburgh. David, thank you so much. I know we're out of time. Where could our listeners get your information for this weekend?
Sure. ESPN.com/chalk is where our picks columns will be. We have the college ones that are up now, Stanford's even the Bear tomorrow. And we'll have our NFL picks columns up Friday morning and Mike Clay's props Friday afternoon. Or you can follow me on Twitter at DBearmanESPN is where I send out all the stuff.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on, David. Enjoy the weekend and best of luck on your bets.
You too, bud. Thank you.